Welcome to another edition of Fashion Counsel. My name is Anthony Lupo, and today we're talking to Dan Jasnow about the Metaverse. Thanks for joining us, Dan.
Thanks, Tony.
As you might have seen, Aaron Fox Schiff was the first major law firm to enter the Metaverse. It's really one of our core competencies. I think we've done probably more work than any other law firm in the Metaverse on a variety of issues, not just NFT. A lot of, I think, consumers think about NFTs as the Metaverse, but what we're going to address today is that's a small piece of it. We're going to talk about where the future of the Metaverse will go and where we think companies need to be paying attention from an e-commerce model. So Dan, let's start with the question of what are you seeing clients do? And I guess we'll start with the easy. Most people are using it as an advertising play first, but then we'll turn to the issue of how people are actually making money on it.
Yep.
So from an advertising standpoint, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I think, Tony, that's exactly right. A lot of the brands that we're seeing today are playing in it as an opportunity to market themselves, to connect with different consumers, and to reach out to new audiences for the storytelling component, the engagement component, the community component, and they're building, platforms within the metaverse in order to engage with these consumers in a new way.
Yeah, when I think about it, it makes sense for a retail company to maybe do a deal with one of these gaming companies where you can wear the virtual clothing in it. That makes sense. I don't think anybody's really going to stretch on that. I think where things get more interesting is when they start to move to the second stage, where they pop up a store. I know that Dolce & Gabbana has an interesting play where you could buy an NFT, a coin, and it gives you access to the online platform, but it also provides you with virtual gear and real world gear. So They've done it where they've taken all three and merged it. But that's sort of the final game, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And what we're seeing is activity in what I would classify as two different types of metaverse platforms. The one is the sort of traditional video game, the Roblox, the Fortnites, et cetera. And then the other is these on-chain worlds that are Decentraland, the Sandbox, some of these other metaverse platforms that really allow the brands to take control of the experience in a new way and to really own both the IP that's involved and the entire experience. Dolce & Gabbana has been one of the, at the forefront of this and is at the forefront also of mixing the both digital aspect of the e-commerce as well as the physical goods and linking those together by sale of an NFT.
And Gucci's another one that's been at the forefront. I mean, Gucci set up the Gucci Garden probably before almost anybody in Roblox, and you go there and then they have a whole garden really where they introduce new customers and people to their product. So I find that kind of interesting because that's a traditional advertising play, but now we're starting to see companies think about it from an e-commerce.
Right.
And so I always describe this for people that don't really understand the play here. Think about the Apple Store. Everybody in their mind knows what that looks like. They know the tables, they know what the products are going to look like, they know the spacing between the products, they know the colors and the like. Then if you go to the Apple website, it doesn't have that look and feel. It's a two-dimensional, of course, website where you get to look at the product, maybe the front and back, and order it. You're going to be able to merge that existence where you go on and you're going to see the Apple Store, the way it looks and feels, and be able to touch the products and look at it. That's what we're going to, that convergence.
Right.
So continuing on that line, we're seeing a lot of retail companies really look into using this even beyond that, not just for sales of their product, but also for other aspects, like maybe hosting concerts and things like that, really trying to expand their brand. What else are you seeing in that vein?
Right. Yeah, this really gets to the experiential aspect of the metaverse and using the metaverse as a way to really supercharge your community of consumers. One thing that we're seeing that's really interesting in this space is some brands starting to venture into the DAO space, these decentralized autonomous organizations, which are really a way for brands to sort of act collectively with a group of their most passionate consumers or with creative artists or other brand influencers. L'Oreal is one company that has already publicly announced that they're doing some activity in the DAO space. That's a really interesting example where they've launched a DAO that is going to showcase certain artists who will digital artists who will help them really sort of design the future of the beauty industry in the metaverse space.
And what's kind of interesting is you might not appreciate that in some of these platforms, sales of makeup, digital makeup, account for 30% of the revenue, which is shocking. So I think where a lot of people are going to divide along the generations is not really understanding that a lot of the younger generation views their avatar as important as how they dress in the real world and willing to spend money on it.
Right, that's absolutely right. Cosmetics has been an area that there's been a huge amount of activity, e-commerce activity in the metaverse for the digital-only goods. But as you said, we're seeing it both in the digital-only goods as well as the physical goods, where we're starting to see that an NFT might give you access to both sets.
That's where I want to focus, right? Because honestly, I think a lot of businesses aren't going to just be going to the metaverse to sell digital goods. They'll do that, but I think where you're going to see a transformative use is once they figure out how to sell real world clothing with the digital space. Right. And that's where the future and the power of the metaverse lies.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think another really interesting use case that we're seeing is the use of digital tracking devices on physical clothing that also link to NFTs, so that you can finally, for the first time, brands can track a physical item for the entire life cycle from manufacturing all the way through potentially first sale and secondary sales. It's taking the supply chain tracking and taking it post-consumer sale. And that can all be done either with an NFT or without an NFT, but the NFT example is something that is definitely primed for growth.
And where I think a lot of people confuse the metaverse, they think of NFTs, but I like the blockchain example. Walmart publicly has announced that they're taking their whole back-end fulfillment to the blockchain to be able to track sourcing and the like. I think retail companies are really going to see the opportunity by putting on the blockchain, and as we know, the metaverse is built on a blockchain.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about some of the problems with the metaverse. The number one problem is the environmental charge. I think you told me that one Bitcoin has the equivalent of the amount of energy of the Ukraine in its better days.
Yeah, that's right. So Bitcoin is particularly energy intensive. As we're taping this, we are right about to enter the merge for Ethereum. This has actually already started. Ethereum, which is the second largest by market cap blockchain, is actually transitioning to a much more energy efficient algorithm method of operation that will drastically reduce its energy consumption. And so, it's likely that the future models are going to be a lot more energy efficient than Bitcoin is, for example, or that Ethereum has been.
And so what I don't think most retail companies appreciate is they're putting together a budget for this. They sell off an NFT, they expect a certain amount of revenue, but then you find out that the gas cost, which is the cost that it takes to really generate this, is astronomical. We've seen ones where the gas cost has been more expensive than the NFT in some instances.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is still, we're definitely still in the early phases of the metaverse. This is still not a user-friendly experience for the most part.
Not.
It's very difficult to get into some of these programs, to connect to the various programs that need to be connected. And to be honest, we don't know where this is all headed, but I think it's very clear that this is going to be an e-commerce play for brands for a very long time, regardless of the final form of it.
Yeah, and so Aaron Fox Schiff, when we bought our property, and buying a property, I have to tell our viewers, is not an easy challenge because you have to fund it, you have to fund the wallet, it takes a period of time. If you're looking to move on a property quickly, it's not so easy to do. And it's not cheap. And so we bought property right across from the Fashion Mall, essentially the Rodeo Drive. So when they're doing the fashion presentations, you're going to see the Aaron Fox Schiff sign. The trick, though, is to make it not so serious as you might in a real store.
Yeah, and especially for the fashion industry, Tony, I think this is such a great opportunity for brands to show their creative sides, to really elevate the creative people that are behind these brands, that make their actual products, and to bring that, and even in a playful, imaginary sort of way that's not possible in a physical space. And you're seeing that a lot in Decentraland, where you can walk down the fashion land or the fashion district and walk into various three-dimensional e-commerce experiences and see the character of the brands and the way that they've designed the insides, the artwork that they feature, the virtual clothing that they're selling.
Yeah, Ralph Lauren has done a great job on that, where you walk in and you can take a look and you feel like you're in a Ralph Lauren store, and you can actually go up to the products and interact with them and buy them. I can imagine a Gallery Lafayette where you walk in and it looks just like the experience you have, which is probably one of the best fashion malls in the world. Those examples. Let's spend a second, though, on talking about the devices, because I think where people get hung up is they have to wear these headsets, but that's not where we're going, right?
No, that's right. Yeah, I mean, you can access these platforms mostly without a headset, but many of them also are planning for a headset future, and many of the platforms do also require a headset. I think we're starting to see sort of a turning of the corner for some of these devices, where they're becoming a lot sleeker, a lot more user-friendly, and critically transitioning from a virtual reality where you are really in the headset, you can't see your surroundings, to an augmented or mixed reality experience,
is the future.
Which is really the future. That's where you might start to see more smart glasses. Meta recently announced their next generation headset, which is even sleeker than the current, the Meta Quest 2. And so
Sony's releasing theirs
Right.
coming up. There's a lot of discussion, and Apple as well.
Right.
You're going to see a lot more of these thinner glasses that have augmented reality, meaning that you have the glass on, and instead of just seeing the experience, you're also seeing your surroundings. And it's been rumored that you could actually dial it up or dial it down to get rid of the foreground. So if you wanted that virtual experience instead of AR, some of these glasses, at least in specs, it's been said, you're going to have that ability. So let's finish on the DAO, because I think that's a really confusing topic for a lot of companies and why they would do it. And we know that the dividing line on the DAO is whether it's a security or not a security. Most of our clients do not want to be regulated, but interesting enough, we have a few that do. And their view is that setting a higher bar for market entry, because we want people to have to comply with the same requirements. And so a DAO, when you think about it, is an organization that is controlled to some extent by the majority share. It's almost like being in a general partnership in a weird way, where everybody has a vote and the majority controls. So why would a retail company, set up a DAO, and for what instances would you see that being done in?
So you mentioned the securities issues. I mean, certainly we're seeing DAOs that are intended to be an investment vehicle or a way to make investments in IP, music catalogs, et cetera. But we're also seeing DAOs that are really geared toward engagement and toward building a community of interested people, consumers who a brand might want to capture and make sure are really engaged. And that's where, about cryptocurrencies, obviously, but these DAOs can issue their own tokens, just like shares of a company, although we don't call them securities, but anybody that has a token can really have a vote in the future direction of a project or a company. So for example, it could be a VIP loyalty program where anybody that has a token that's a member of the DAO gets to decide. You could vote on what the next rewards will be, or you could vote on the scope of the program. You could see it with IP catalog. So say you're a movie studio and you want to say, here we have all these characters. We want our DAO members to vote on which character should be featured in the next movie. And we're seeing it, in all sorts of different aspects where, we've got communities of artists who are coming together for fashion brands, who are helping shape the future of a company or a brand's personality. So, you can imagine all sorts of different opportunities for this.
And in fact, with a lot of our entertainment clients, the artists and the designers are requiring that they have a metaverse house set up or whatever. You can imagine that. And so you have designers for a brand or sub-brands that want to have their own house, and they want to dictate to their clients where they think the vision's going and get feedback. It's an interesting thing. You also said from an investment standpoint, interesting enough, we've had clients that do want to turn this into an investment, where you might invest in a particular IP or a brand and share in the revenue in the same way you would invest in a stock. So we're at the infancy stages, and companies are looking at this for all types of reasons.
Yep, that's right.
Thanks again for joining us, Dan. Appreciate all the advice, and I'm sure we'll be talking again about the metaverse.
Thanks for having me, Tony.
Thank you for joining us for another edition of Fashion Counsel. We'll see you soon.